True Christians Vote Democratic by Dale E. Harris. What did Jesus Christ say about who will go to heaven and who will go to hell? In Matthew 25:31 through 46, Jesus Christ taught that those who fail to feed, clothe, and house the poor fail to feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ, and shall go away into everlasting punishment. Thus, true Christians who follow Jesus Christ feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ by doing so unto the least. Jesus Christ taught that money from the rich should provide for the needs of the poor, and in fact instructed the rich to take their wealth and distribute unto the poor. Luke 18:22. Thus Jesus Christ was a liberal and taught the Christian liberal values of compassion for the poor and taxing the rich and super rich to provide for the needs of the poor. As a voter in America, how can you help to feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ by doing so unto the least? To feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ, you must only vote for candidates who promise to raise taxes on the super rich by at least $200 billion in order to generate good-paying jobs for every American and thereby feed, clothe, and house the poor workers of America. Will God punish America for allowing poor children to go hungry and for allowing homelessness in America? When Republican politicians cut funding for food stamps that feed poor and hungry children, it is a deadly sin that Jesus Christ teaches can send people to hell. When Republican politicians cut taxes on the super rich, thus cutting funding for programs that help the poor, it is a deadly sin that Jesus Christ teaches can send people to hell. And when voters vote for candidates who cut funding for food stamps and cut taxes on the super rich, then those voters are voting to not feed Jesus Christ. Matthew 25:45. On Judgment Day, be ready to tell Jesus Christ that you only voted for candidates who promised to feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ by raising taxes on the super rich by $200 billion in order to generate good-paying jobs for every American to feed, clothe, and house every American. Jesus Christ taught that those who are servants of mammon, the super rich, are not the servants of God. Thus, millionaire TV preachers who take bribe money from the radical rich to tell voters to vote for politicians who cut the food stamp budget and cut taxes on the super rich needed to pay for it are servants of the radical rich and thus are not servants of God, according to the teachings of Jesus Christ. Does being a millionaire and having a TV station make one a man of God? Or does teaching the Christian liberal values of Jesus Christ make one a true man of God? Jesus Christ calls upon pastors and churches who serve the super rich with tax cuts rather than serving God with programs to help the poor to repent of their sins of immoral lust for money. Jesus Christ said, "Well hath Esaias prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men." Mark 7:6 and 7. Jesus says to pastors and churches that seek treasures on earth rather than treasures in heaven, "Because thou sayest, I am rich, be zealous therefore and repent." Revelations 3:17 through 19. True Christian values are the Christian liberal values of Jesus Christ, namely raising taxes on the super rich to feed, clothe, and house the poor through better paying jobs for all Americans. A true Christian votes based upon the teachings of Jesus Christ rather than based upon the teachings of the radical rich and their millionaire puppets on TV. A true Christian will only vote for candidates who promise to raise taxes on the super rich by at least $200 billion in order to invest in America's future through solar, wind, and hybrid energy. How many solar panels, windmills, and hybrid vehicles can be purchased by Americans with $200 billion a year in financial assistance? How many jobs would that create to feed, clothe, and house poor workers of America? With the $1 trillion 5-year program, how soon would America be energy independent and have the financial power to economically boycott oil producers that finance radical Islam terrorism? Only by taxing the super rich can we finance and win the global economic war against terrorism. We can defeat global terrorism within 10 to 20 years through an economically powerful and energy-independent America. America needs a new future and new leadership that serves God and the people of America rather than serving the radical, rich, economic dictators of America who are destroying America from within. Have the courage to speak the taboo truth that the radical rich are economic dictators and are guilty of economic treason against the people of America. We can create good paying jobs for every American worker, thus feed, clothe, and house every American. Become energy independent through trillions of tax dollars used to finance solar, wind, hybrid, and alternative energy. Have long-term prosperity through lower energy costs. Win the global economic war against terrorism. Politically and economically pressure nations to eliminate the teaching of religious hatred and murder in the name of God. Defeat global terrorism within 10 to 20 years. But only if we raise taxes on the super rich by at least $200 billion and raise taxes on imports from communist China by at least 100%. True Christian values are the Christian liberal values of Jesus Christ, namely raising taxes on the super rich to create good-paying jobs to feed, clothe, and house the poor. Since only Democrats follow the Christian liberal values of Jesus Christ, true Christians only vote for Democrats. Vote Democrat to feed, clothe, and house Jesus Christ.